Hello! Happy Tuesday. I hope everyone's doing well. Welcome to Much Ado About Gaming. My name is Jessa Blackthorne, and I am so excited to bring you this show today on this lovely Tuesday, where we are less snowed in than last week, but still kind of snowed in, but we can drive places now, at least, but there's still, snow. A lot of it. Lots of snow. I don't know if you can hear it, but if you hear like a humming in the background, they're doing some sort of something outside my apartment. So I apologize, but I hope it does not detract from your experience because we have an awesome show today set up for you. Today, what we're going to be talking about is WizKids Board Games that fans of RPG will love. So as you know, we've been doing a series of shows over the past few weeks talking about board games that are great for fans of different, product lines that WizKids produces. We talked about HeroClix, we talked about Dice Masters, we talked about Attack Wing, and this week we are focusing on RPG fans. And I love RPGs, I love tabletop RPGs. Relatively speaking, I'm still fairly new to, tabletop RPGs. I didn't grow up playing them like a lot of people did. I was always kind of more of a board game person, but I've fallen in love with RPGs in the past few years, and so I really had a lot of fun picking out the options for this episode because I think that they're all really great board games that really capture the RPG experience and condense it down into a tabletop board game format. So it's really cool. I'm really excited. I hope everyone is having a wonderful Tuesday. Noodles and I are so excited to talk to you today. Before I get started, of course, just a few quick things. If you have a question and you would like me to answer it in the chat, please type question in all caps and then let me know what your question is. That helps me out so I can see what you're asking. So if you see me looking off to the side here, that's just to make sure that nobody has any questions or, so I can answer the questions. But I will do my best to answer any questions that I can. I might not be able to answer every question, but I'm happy to help where I can. So yeah, today's episode is going to be really great. I have a few more options than usual. There was actually a lot of great board games that I had to choose from today, so I picked some of my favorites. We have a couple extras, some that I'm going to give shout outs to. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started. Alright, first up we're going to talk about what board game would you like if you like the dungeon crawling experience of RPG games. So, I didn't mention this at the beginning, I feel like I probably should have. The way I kind of do these episodes is I kind of dissect the parts of the experience of a given game or a given line. So like HeroClix I dissected down, Dice Masters I dissected down. Today we're doing RPGs. I dissect down kind of different elements. And then from those elements, I pull them and I say, okay, this is the board game that would go with if you like this element of whatever. So for RPGs, we're going to start out with if you like dungeon crawling. Dungeon crawling, of course, is a fundamental element of the RPG experience. It's the thing that draws a lot of people into RPGs is, getting to explore a dungeon, collect loot, fight monsters, and you really can't go any better in terms of a dungeon crawl board game from WizKids that's really just a dungeon crawl experience than Dungeon Hustle. Now, Dungeon Hustle is a bit of an older game, but it's so much fun. It's so cool. It's not the newest dance craze, although if you want to come up with a dance called the Dungeon Hustle, feel free to do that. Maybe, share it on social media. You can tag me at @the_Blackthorne on Twitter, on Instagram. I would love to see what you think a Dungeon Hustle dance would look like. That would be super fun. Pretty cool. I would love to see it. But in Dungeon Hustle, what you're doing is you're exploring a dungeon, collecting loot, and trying to defeat monsters. So it's the concept is a very straightforward dungeon crawl experience, but it's got a lot of interesting things going on. So you're going to take on one of, the various RPG archetype classes, clerics, fighters, rogues, etc. And each one, of course, has some different abilities. And then you have cards on the table that are in a 7x7 grid, and as you can see in the picture, they're like colored tiles. And so you move across those tiles, and you're trying to move across tiles that are the same color, and then on your turn, and then when you get to a different color, you stop, and then you get to pick up every card that you traveled across. So that's kind of how you collect your loot in the game. The cards have various symbols that you can use for different things. They allow you to fight monsters, you fulfill quests, you buy item cards, so they give you kind of different bonuses depending on the symbol on the card. You also will have to contend with wandering monsters who travel through the dungeon and they spawn in, so, you know, the number of monsters grows. And you need to defeat them before they escape the dungeon, because that is kind of your timer for the game. If too many monsters escape before the end of the game, everyone loses. So it does have that co-op element, which is really cool. You also, like I said, you battle these monsters, and you can actually help other players battle the monsters. So it's, you know, the game is competitive. You do want to have the most victory points, but there's also cooperative elements, because if you help other players, you actually get bonuses for yourself. So you might want to, you know, be a little bit benevolent, because it does allow you to get bonuses and really cool stuff. You can also level up your character as you're playing the game if you have enough gold, and that allows you to gain new abilities and grow stronger, which of course means that you'll be more successful in collecting victory points. At the end of the game, of course, the player with the most victory points wins, and that is kind of a quick summary of Dungeon Hustle. This, you can see, this is actually one of the two of the quest cards from the game. So the quests kind of have different parameters that you need to fulfill to complete them by collecting certain cards on the board. The game is really cool. It's really simple and kind of straightforward, but really fun. It plays 2 to 4 players, so it's a nice, you know, player count. Ages 14 and up. It plays in 60 minutes. It's a very, like, concise kind of playtime in that respect. And then it's $24.99 MSRP. Of course, you can pick it up at your friendly local game store or online. And I really think it's really kind of nicely synthesized the dungeon crawling experience into a fun board game version of that. It still kind of feels like you're making progress in a dungeon crawly kind of way. So that's Dungeon Hustle. Let's move on to our next game, which we're going to talk about. If you like solving puzzles, I have to recommend Curio. Curio holds a special place in my heart, actually, because it was the first game WizKids released after I started. So I really love Curio. It's a real-time cooperative puzzle-solving game where your players are archaeologists trapped in a hidden temple that they've discovered a mile underground. So it's kind of like an escape the room kind of scenario, which of course you see a lot in RPGs because players are required to solve puzzles in order to escape dungeons or different things, and I feel like that's a really popular element in RPGs is, you know, trying to solve these different puzzles, or, you know, DMs coming up with the most, you know, complex puzzles that they can that are still solvable. And Curio is really cool because it's actually really different from a lot of other escape the room games you might have seen, because it's designed to be replayable, even with the same group of players. So, you know, you don't have to worry about, oh, I can only play this once and then I'm done. Curio allows you to play it multiple times, and it's always kind of different and a new experience. So once you solve the puzzle once, that doesn't mean you've seen everything or solved everything. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to escape the temple within the time limit by solving what kind of feels like an unending slew of puzzles. So the goal of every puzzle is to come up with a 5-letter answer, and then each puzzle is made up of the module pieces for that puzzle, and there are 5 different puzzle modules, but also an expert card. And what's really cool about that is the expert cards, the player who is working on a given puzzle, each player works on their own kind of puzzle module, but the expert cards are not held by those players. So you actually are helping another player solve their puzzle while being helped to solve your own puzzle at the same time. So it really takes a strong cooperative, it really relies on your ability to be cooperative with the other players and work together, and I feel like that's really unique because everyone needs to really listen to each other and really, you know, cooperate. I know there's a better word for that, but we're just gonna say cooperate. There are 5 different puzzle modules. There's the wheel, threads, stones, shapes, and the hourglass. So there is a timer element involved as well. And there's 3 levels of difficulty for each puzzle. So it's got a lot there for variability, and that makes it really super replayable, and it looks really cool when you're playing it too. The game also has an app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the iOS store. It's called the WizKids Companion app, so if you go on that store, you can download the WizKids Companion app for free, and you'll see the stuff for Curio inside the app. It also has the score for Fantasy Realms, but for this we're talking about the Curio portion of the app, which will help you with the Hourglass module. It's not required, but it definitely enhances the experience and makes it more fun. Another thing to add, I need to stop saying another thing to add about Curio is that there's actually a puzzle built inside the game. So that's all I'm going to tell you about that, but check it out. It's pretty cool. Definitely check that out. The game plays 2 to 5 players, ages 14 and up, and it plays in 10 to 20 minutes, so you actually score based on how long you took to complete the game is your base score for the game. And the time you took to complete the game is factored into that. So the timers go from anywhere from a little under 10, like, you can finish it in under 10 minutes, absolutely. But the max is around 20 minutes. I think it's 16 minutes. So depending on that timing. So it's a nice quick game. It's got a lot of components, but it is a very quick game, and you can play multiple games in a row of it because it moves so fast. So if you want to try different modules or different difficulties, you can definitely do that. The game is $34.99, of course. You can get it at your friendly local game store or online, and I would just like to point out that it has the Imagination Gaming seal of approval, which is pretty cool and a pretty high honor, and we really love that, it did successfully get that seal of approval in 2019, because it's such a wonderful game. It's so much fun. It's so cool. I highly recommend it. It's called Curio, so definitely check it out. It's Curio the Lost Temple is the full title, but if you look for Curio board game, you should be able to find it pretty easily. Next up, if you like the theme of RPG, so there were 2 options I could have had for this one. I went with Last Second Quest, but another game to check out before I go into Last Second Quest is Fungin Party, which is basically it's a party game. It's got lots of fun dexterity things, cool stuff going on, but you can definitely pick that up as well. It's called Fungin Party, so like dungeon, but Fungin. But that's another one that's a great RPG-themed, fun little party game. But I decided to talk about Last Second Quest. It's a more recent release. It is super cute. It is a dexterity game. It's kind of a dexterity speed-based game in which players are adventurers packing their items for a quest. So you have a gridded board that represents your bag or your backpack, and there's a shared pile of items in the center of the table, and players are collecting these items. Each round a quest is revealed, and that quest has a unique set of required items and forbidden items, and you only have a few seconds to grab the items that you think are correct for the quest and fill your bag while avoiding the forbidden items. And then once everybody is done grabbing their items, everyone will take turns defending their choices of their items and score based on how well you prepared and how few empty spaces are left over in your bag. So I think it's pretty fun. I actually really like how unique it is, and I'll talk about that in a second, but I also wanted to mention, of course, that various character classes are represented in the game, and they each have a different thematic ability. So the Barbarian, for example, can't use armor, but he gets to get an early start to collecting. He rushes into battle, he rushes in, which is pretty fun and pretty cool and thematic. Or the Paladin, who can't use evil items, of course, but he gets to win all ties. So there's really a lot going on with the theme here, and they really thought about how to integrate the theme into the gameplay, which I think is very fun. But what I think is the coolest part of this game, and what is really one of the most interesting parts of this game, is you actually get a chance to defend your choices of items. So let's say, kind of as an example, the quest that you were on forbade weapons. You can't bring any weapons on this quest, so you can't grab any weapon items. Well, you grabbed a shovel. A shovel's not a weapon, it's a tool. But there's a chance you will have to discuss, because some players may feel that a shovel is a weapon because you can hit someone over the head with it, so it counts as a weapon. So after everyone's collected their items, there will be a roundtable discussion of, does anybody, feel that this item, doesn't qualify, or maybe does qualify as either a required item for that quest or a forbidden item for that quest. And you will have a chance to argue and defend the items that you selected, whether or not they're forbidden or maybe required. And I think that's really interesting and cool. And what's really fun is that, in one round you might argue, yes, of course a shovel is a weapon. You hit someone, you can beat someone up with a shovel. But then later in the game, maybe you have another situation where now you have a shovel and it's on the list and weapons are forbidden. Oh, a shovel's not a weapon. So you can actually change your position later in the game. The vote on an item doesn't lock it in for the rest of the game, just that round. So everyone will vote, and then the majority wins, of course, on whether something is required or forbidden, and that will affect your points. And then if a vote does tie, actually, the player who owns the item gets to decide. So it's a really different element, and I love the idea of defending whether or not, like, finding your roundabout logic on whether or not something counts or doesn't count for a particular category. And that's one of the most fun elements of this game. I like games like that where it's you have to logic your way to convince people to do something, and I think that's super fun for me. I've said it before, I'm a social deduction person, so for me that's right up my alley, and this is such a great game because it does incorporate those RPG elements, and it feels like you're getting ready for an RPG. The game is also super quick. It only plays in 20 minutes, so it's a nice fast game. 2 to 5 players, ages 14 and up, and it is $34.99 MSRP at your friendly local game store or online, and that is Last Second Quest. Now, of course, I cannot talk about WizKids RPG board games without bringing up Mage Knight. How could I do that? Mage Knight is a classic fantasy RPG board game utilizing the Clix system, and it is one of our most iconic and popular games, and we love Mage Knight. I love Mage Knight. It's another game that really captures the RPG experience, and so the way I've kind of put this in terms of categories is, if you like storytelling and you like fantasy RPGs, and I'm going to talk about another type of RPG in a minute for a storytelling category, so we're not just focusing on fantasy RPGs, but if you like storytelling, Mage Knight is so much fun. Each game of Mage Knight you play according to one of the scenarios where you have to complete a set of goals according to certain parameters, but you still have some freedom, so there's no real strict course of action that you have to follow, which I think really is something that people love about RPGs. They love that they can kind of create their own story, and Mage Knight really does that. You gather fame, treasure, and knowledge as you complete these scenarios and explore the Atlantean kingdom as a heroic Mage Knight. So as you play the game, you can actually also improve your hero by finding artifacts, learning new spells, recruiting characters, soldiers, villagers to join you on your quest. You gain fame, etc. You also grow your reputation as you're going, and that will help you in completing your goals or convincing people, persuading people, maybe villagers to help you or sell you things. But conversely, you can also diminish your reputation, in which case the local villagers will refuse to talk about you because they know about you. You're, a bad person. So that's really cool, and I feel like it really enhances the immersion in Mage Knight. And you can spend your influence, of course, to buy things. So that is another great way that it integrates the kind of RPG feel. During the game, you'll also battle enemies, and then at the end of the game, after you complete a certain number of scenarios, you get to count your achievements and determine your score based on what you accomplished during the game. But what's really interesting is that there's no one way to grow your score, so there's a number of different ways that you can increase your score, so there's no strict play style. There's no strict specific one road to success in Mage Knight, which I think, again, people love the freedom of RPGs. They love that they can do whatever they want, go wherever they want, play however they want, and Mage Knight really captures that in the way that it, you know, has that way to grow your score. The game, the version that we're looking at here in these pictures is Mage Knight Ultimate Edition. It is a complete set with the base game, all of the expansions that were released, and 5 new cards. So that is what you're looking at right here. That's what you see the info for up above my head. The $124.99 price point is for Mage Knight Ultimate Edition. You can, of course, buy the base game and the expansion separately if you prefer to do that, but I really recommend the Ultimate Edition because it has the base game, it has all 3 expansions, the Lost Legion, Krang, and Shades of Tesla. So it's a nice complete set of the thing. And you get the 5 new cards. If you do already have Mage Knight and you have all the expansions and you just want the 5 new cards, you can head on over to shop.wizkids.com and order the 5 new cards directly from us. So, you know, if you don't need the Ultimate Edition because you have everything already, that's also an option, certainly, because you don't want to miss out on the 5 new cards if you have everything. But Mage Knight is 1 to 5 players, so there is a solo mode, which is really nice. Ages 14 and up. It plays in 1 or more hours. I recommend setting aside 2 to 3 hours for the game, so you're not rushing through it. I mean, it plays in, like, you could play it in about an hour, but I just recommend giving it more time. And for the Ultimate Edition, it is $124.99 and worth every penny. It's so good. So much fun. So that is Mage Knight Ultimate Edition. Now, if you like storytelling and freedom, but you like sci-fi RPGs, you need to check out Star Trek Alliance Dominion War Campaign. I talked about this last week. It came out last week. It's a brand new game, and it's so much fun, and it's another campaign-based game and a storytelling style game, but it's Star Trek, so it's set in space, it's science fiction themed. It's a starship battle game, and it is inspired by the events of the Dominion War, which, if you're a fan of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, you're probably pretty familiar with the Dominion War. And what's really cool is it, like, has things that, like, you'll hear on Deep Space Nine them mention certain details of the Dominion War, or certain, like, battles happened, but you won't see them. Well, you actually get to see what they're talking about by playing this game. So in the game, 1 or more players create their own Federation captains. They form a task force and work together to defeat the Dominion over a series of campaign missions. And you can actually succeed or fail at the missions, and if you fail a mission, you don't immediately lose the game. You actually continue playing, and that will affect what your next mission is, how things are going into your next mission. So it feels like another storytelling experience because of that, because it's not just win-lose for every mission, and if you lose the game. You still get to progress through the game, and at the end of the game, it determines if you win or lose the Dominion War based on how successful you were in the missions. 1 copy of the game contains everything for 1 or 2 players, but you can actually use more copies of the game to have up to 6 players play the game at the same time, which is why there's an asterisk in the corner there next to 1 to 6 players. That's why. The game includes pre-painted plastic ships, custom dice, cards, tokens, and a 6-mission campaign book, so it contains everything you need. You are going to battle against enemy ships controlled by the game, and then complete objectives to earn experience points. And then between missions, you can spend those experience points to upgrade your ships and advance the overall campaign, which means that you can become a Starfleet legend. I feel like this is my thing. You can become a Starfleet legend. So it's really cool. It really captures a sci-fi storytelling experience. And, you know, it's more structured storytelling, I think, than Mage Knight, but it still feels very immersive, which I think is something that's very important to RPG fans, is feeling that immersion, and Star Trek Alliance Dominion War Campaign definitely does that. So it's for ages 14 and up, 1 to 6 players. Again, 1 to 2 players for 1 copy, but if you have 3 copies, you can play up to 6. It plays in 30 or more minutes depending on how fast it goes, how fast your gameplay is, and it is $49.99 for a copy of the game at your friendly local game store or online. Now, if you just like fantasy RPGs, you just want an RPG experience, but it's a board game, you can't... Oh. What happened? Sorry about that. You can't go wrong with the D&D Adventure System games. There are, of course, multiple Adventure System games. For this, I'm just talking about... I'm not just talking about Waterdeep Dungeon of the Mad Mage, but that is the most recently released one. But there are multiple. WizKids, of course, has made Tomb of Annihilation and Temple of Elemental Evil as well. There is also another WizKids one, which is kind of separate. You can't combine it with the others, but that's Assault of the Giants. Hi, Nathaniel. This is not a show about HeroClix. We talk mainly about board games. Sometimes we talk about HeroClix on the show, but the primary focus of our show is, of course, about board games. But thank you so much for your question. But yes, if you like fantasy RPGs, the D&D Adventure System board games are almost quite literally an RPG experience in a box. And you don't need a DM for it. It's a tile-based exploration game where you use pre-generated characters who have different skills, different strengths, different weaknesses, and random monster encounters with defined tactics, so you really don't need a DM for it. It's a great way to get that tabletop experience without needing a DM and with all of the things that you need right in the box. You'll explore castles, mountain caverns, and frightening dungeons in the series of games that are set in the world of Dungeons and Dragons. The entire adventure for a single game can also be completed in 2 hours or less, so it's great if you want the full RPG experience, but you're tight on time. It comes with miniatures for all of the monsters as well, so you get, I know that people who play RPGs, we really love miniatures. I mean, WizKids makes the miniatures. Of course we love the miniatures. And this is really nice because it comes with miniatures for all of the monsters, so you have everything accessible to you right in the box. And the miniatures are so cool, especially in Dungeon of the Mad Mage. It has like the zombie beholder, which is awesome. And at least for Tomb of Annihilation and Waterdeep Dungeon of the Mad Mage, there are 2 editions you can get. The standard edition, which comes with unpainted miniatures, and the premium edition, which has the miniatures fully painted. So the price point is different for those 2, but you can have the fully painted version of the miniatures if maybe you're not a miniature painter. But if you are a miniature painter, there is an unpainted version. Or if you just prefer unpainted miniatures, that's fine too. You do you. Mad Mage, specifically, to talk about Mad Mage for a second, you travel to Undermountain and adventure into the dwelling of the legendary Mad Mage, Halaster Blackcloak. So it's very similar to the... Mike, are they replayable? Does the story change each time? You can I'm actually about to talk about that. There's a lot of replayability because you can combine the different Adventure System games and create your own story. So, at least I know for a fact, Waterdeep Dungeon of the Mad Mage, Tomb of Annihilation, and Temple of Elemental Evil, you can combine them in a ton of different ways, and that allows you for a ton of replayability because you can make the story your own and create a new and unique experience every single time you play. And these are so cool. It was actually the next thing I was going to say, so you timed that question perfectly. But they're so cool. They're so much fun. They're huge games, but they give you, to me, the definitive RPG board game experience. And I cannot sing their praises enough. Especially if you really love D&D, you love the world of D&D, you love the experience of Dungeons and Dragons, and that's the world that you want to play in. Waterdeep words are hard. Oh my gosh. The D&D Adventure System board game series is absolutely the way to go. I cannot recommend it enough. It's so great, so much fun. They play 1 to 5 players, and they play in an hour or more depending on how you play it. The price point starts at $79.99 and goes up to $159.99 depending on, again, standard edition or premium edition. I highly recommend them. They are so much fun. You can get them at your friendly local game store or online. They're great. definitely pick these up. They're so much fun. Thank you so much for watching our show. I hope you are having a wonderful Tuesday. This is the end of our series on board games that are great for fans of our different product lines. If you have any suggestions for what you would like me to cover on this show that is a board game related topic about WizKids Board Games, please feel free to leave it in the chat, leave it in the comments. I read all of the comments, so I would love to know what you would like to see me cover next. Please feel free, if you like this video, hit the like button below, make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can see every video as we upload them. Check out V's show tomorrow. She hosts Mini Mayhem, and she's going to be talking about some great stuff on the show. Thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful Tuesday. Oh, and follow us on social media. You can follow WizKids at WizKids Games on Twitter and WizKids on Facebook, or WizKids Games on Instagram. If you want to follow me on social media, you can do that. I'm at _Blackthorne, spelled Blackthorne with an E, on Twitter and Instagram, or Jessa Blackthorne on Facebook. I would love to have you there. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you are having... Yes, Noodles is having a nap. He's very tired playing all these RPGs so that we could get ready for this show. He was having fun. Thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful week. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Yeah. Thank you so much for watching. See you next week. Bye.